Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to learn English with an amazing and inspiring story. We're going to talk about one of the most famous presidents in American history, Abraham Lincoln. We will learn new vocabulary, improve our listening skills, and discover the life of a great man. Are you ready? Let's get started. On a cold winter day, February 12, 1809, in a humble log cabin on a farm in Kentucky, a baby was born whose exceptional destiny no one could have foreseen. They named him Abraham Lincoln. Life was harsh with him from the very beginning. His mother, Nancy Hanks, was a literate and religious woman who planted a love of learning in young Abraham's heart. But this flame was soon threatened. When Abraham was just 9 years old, his mother died from milk sickness, a form of poisoning. This was the first heavy blow of his life. He was left alone with his father, Thomas Lincoln, a hard-working but uneducated man. Abraham's world was one of darkness, poverty, and backbreaking labor. His days were spent farming and chopping wood, and at night, by the dim light of a tallow lamp, his only solace was books. He read with an insatiable hunger, the Bible, the life of George Washington, Robinson Crusoe, and every piece of printed paper he could get his hands on. These books were a window to a world larger than his log cabin and meager farm. Abraham's father remarried. His stepmother, Sarah Bush Johnston, was a kind and enlightened woman who immediately recognized her stepson's talent and passion. She was the one who encouraged Abraham to read and write more. Sarah brought him new books and defended him against his father's objections, who urged him to do hard labor instead of studying. Young Abraham sought knowledge at any cost. He famously walked miles to borrow a book on American law, and when it got soaked in the rain, he worked for days to pay off its value. He practiced arithmetic and penmanship on wooden boards with charcoal. These difficult years built an iron will and a strong body. He became a tall, agile young man, renowned in local wrestling matches. At 22, the Lincoln family moved to Illinois. Abraham, now a tall and sturdy young man, decided to build an independent life for himself. He worked in a store in the town of New Salem. His honesty and good-heartedness became legendary. Once, after accidentally shortchanging a customer, he walked miles to return the few cents he owed. From that day on, he was called Honest Abe, but his restless spirit sought greater challenges. In the Black Hawk War, he was elected captain of a volunteer militia company. Although he saw no major combat, this experience ignited the first sparks of leadership and management within him. Abraham always had one dream, the law. Without a teacher or a university, he studied law books on his own to prepare for the bar exam. In 1836, he received his law license and moved to Springfield, the state capital of Illinois. In courtrooms, he quickly became famous for his sharp intellect, skill in argument, and exemplary honesty. Many stories are told of him defending the oppressed and the poor. He saw the law not just as a profession, but as a mission to achieve justice. Simultaneously, the sparks of politics were ignited within him. Deeply of injustice, and especially of slavery, he entered the political arena. In his fiery speeches, he called slavery a black devil that threatened the moral and democratic foundations of America. This bold stance created fierce enemies but also turned him into a national figure. By 1860, America was on the brink. The dispute over slavery between the industrial North and the agrarian South had reached its peak. In this critical situation, the Republican Party nominated Abraham Lincoln as its candidate for president. His election was like a flame to a powder keg. Less than a month after his victory in November 1860, South Carolina seceded from the Union, followed by 10 other Southern states, forming the Confederate States of America. America was on the verge of a full-scale civil war. In his inaugural address, Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand. I have no purpose to interfere with slavery, but I will preserve the Union." But it was too late for talk. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter, a Union base in the South. The American Civil War had begun. The next 4 years were the darkest and bloodiest in American history. Lincoln, as commander-in-chief, was under immense pressure. Constant defeats of the Northern Army in the early years deeply discouraged him. He constantly changed his generals until he finally found the right man, Ulysses S. Grant. Amid this chaos, Lincoln made his greatest decision. On January 1, 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This historic declaration freed all slaves in the rebellious states. This act changed the very nature of the war. It was no longer just a war to preserve the Union, but a war for freedom and to end the shameful, peculiar institution of slavery. In 1863, at the height of the war, he delivered a speech at Gettysburg. It lasted only 2 minutes but became one of the most enduring speeches in human history. He said that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Finally, on April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee, commander of the Confederate Army, surrendered to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The Civil War was over. The North had won, and the Union was preserved. But Lincoln's joy was short-lived. Just 5 days after the war ended, on the evening of April 14, 1865, he and his wife, Mary Todd, attended a play, Our American Cousin, at Ford's Theater. There, John Wilkes Booth, a fanatical actor and Confederate sympathizer, desperate over the preservation of slavery, crept up behind Lincoln and fired a bullet into his skull. Abraham Lincoln, the savior of the Union and the liberator of the slaves, died the following morning. He never got to see the united and free America he had fought for, in peace. The end of a legend, the birth of a myth. Lincoln's death transformed him from a president into a myth. Rising from poverty and darkness, with an iron will, unparalleled honesty, and a deep love for liberty, he changed the course of history. His life is a true story of struggle, sacrifice, and hope, a reminder that the greatest heroes often come from the most unexpected places and leave an eternal legacy. He proved, as he himself had wished, that nothing is impossible in the world for one who sets their mind to it. And so, the life of Abraham Lincoln reminds us that great challenges can lead to great change. His story isn't just history, it's a lesson in courage and never giving up. What is the most important lesson you learned from his life? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more stories to learn English. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.